Oscar, welcome to the Sky Sports F1 podcast. How are you doing?
Very good, thank you.
Yeah, good. Yeah. And we are here at this beautiful cricket pitch ahead of you taking to the pitch and giving us your best cricket. How is it?
Yeah, I'll give it my best shot. see if I've still got it. It'll be a bit rusty, but no, enjoyed cricket growing up, so looking forward to it.
Yeah. What is it about the sport that you like? I mean, how much have you played?
Before I started racing, I played a fair bit, and then even whilst I was racing, because in Australia, obviously our seasons are the opposite to here. So the racing season kind of went from like April to October, November, and then the Christmas period was cricket season. So I used to play cricket in the racing off season. Even when I went to school here in the UK, I played a few games in between races when I could. So yeah, I've always enjoyed it. I guess it's kind of just in my blood being Australian to enjoy it. So no, just really like it, and hopefully we can win the Ashes this year. That'd be nice.
Well, there we go. I mean, quite a safe sport as well for a racing driver, right? Because I guess if you're like taking to the pitch doing rugby or anything like that, there's always the risk of injury, right?
Yes, very true. Definitely, it's definitely a bit safer than rugby. It's funny though, I've actually had more injuries playing cricket than I have racing cars. You know, a ball
broken fingers, that sort of stuff. Yeah.
I haven't broken anything playing cricket, but a ball to the end of the finger or something like that. It's painful when it happens. So hopefully that doesn't happen today.
Fingers crossed. This is where it could happen. So look, it was Spain this weekend, and Saturday qualifying was obviously great for the team, and you got into Q3, and then obviously perhaps a slightly more disappointing race. Where do you see McLaren being at the moment in terms of race pace? You know, is it a case of actually where you finished was probably more a real reflection of where the team is at the moment?
I think so, yes. I think qualifying on Saturday was pretty unexpected to be that high up on the grid. Obviously Lando in third, myself in Q3, and I think, without a big mistake I made in Q3, I think we should have been able to have both of us up there, which was very encouraging. But yeah, I think the Sunday was a bit more back to reality, probably even harder than we thought it would be. We just seemed to be really good in those cold, tricky conditions. Monaco was a bit of a similar story when it rained. That seems to be our strength, and the races and when it's warmer seem to be our weakness at the moment. So we need to try and get on top of that and make our Sundays a bit easier, because obviously that's where all the points are. Yeah,
definitely. What about those upgrades that we hear are coming? Is it either Austria or Silverstone? What are you hoping is going to come from those upgrades?
Hopefully a pretty decent step in performance, I would say. Baku was probably the first step, but in a pretty different direction in terms of where the car development was heading. That's all been sort of as we expected from all the numbers. And now this is, building on that new direction. So hopefully we can find a decent step of performance. Of course, all the other teams are adding performance to their cars as well. So we'll see how big of a step it is, but we're hoping to definitely take a good step towards the top four teams. Yeah.
Well, fingers crossed. Okay, we're going to try and get through as many fan questions as possible, because I know that loads of people have sent them in until you're needed on the cricket pitch. Okay, yes. So here we go. The first one's actually from Lando Norris fans. So there you go. What are the biggest differences between working in F2 and F1? And they sort of specified everything but the driving aspect. Obviously a different car, but what have you noticed as the big differences?
So everything but the driving aspects, honestly, is the biggest differences. The driving is probably the most similar part. It's just it's a bit quicker, but it's what I've grown up doing. The media commitments, the partner commitments, that's all. There's basically none of that in F2.
Playing cricket on a Monday after a race.
Yes, exactly. But yeah, in F2, the most of the media time you do is when things are going very well. And partner commitments, there's not really any, and especially with a team like McLaren, that's a very different story. We've got a lot of great partners on board, which requires a lot of commitments, but it's all part of the job. So that's probably the biggest difference, and then just the calendar as well. My F2 season I had was, I think, 8 rounds, and we've already supposed to have done 8 rounds, and we're in June. Yeah. So it's much more busy from that aspect. Spending more time at the factory, more time with the engineers, working with more people. That's probably the other biggest difference. The F2 team I was with had maybe 30 people, and in F1 I probably have 30 people working on my car on a race weekend, and then there's 800 or 900 people back at the factory building the car. So it's a big step up from that aspect, but it's just a completely different league in everything except for the driving, I would say. And even the driving, it's the best drivers in the world, so that's certainly not an easy part either.
Yeah. Well, now you've obviously, I think 7 or 8 rounds in. How do you reflect on having a year away from the sport? What do you think the impact has been of having that break?
I think there was positives and negatives from having the year off. Obviously, the negative being I'm a racing car driver and I want to race cars. So that was difficult to go watch everyone else go racing whilst I couldn't. But in saying that, I tried to have quite a conscious focus on learning as much as I could from obviously Fernando and Esteban last year in the debriefs and stuff like that. But also the sort of schedule of being an F1 driver, looking at all these partner commitments, the media commitments, and just sort of getting into that routine last year. So I came into this year sort of having a rough idea of what to expect from that front. But yeah, you can't replace track time for your own development. So that's probably been the biggest thing I'm trying to catch up so far at this stage of the year, which obviously without a year off would have been a bit easier, I think.
Yeah, I mean, learning from Fernando, not a bad person to learn
Correct,
from.
Yes.
I'm sure he manages it pretty well. Next question. Lando is known for having many hobbies. What does Oscar enjoy doing in his downtime?
Honestly, not too much at the moment. Sleep is very high up there in the priority list. But yeah,
Can't be a good sleep, can you?
Exactly.
It's just the best.
There's nothing better. So yeah, just relaxing, sleep. I try and spend time with my girlfriend when I'm not at the track as well, because obviously it's a busy year. Apart from that, I've got a sim at home. I like playing on that when I'm not doing anything, or playing video games as well. So yeah, nothing too fancy yet. Obviously spending a lot of time, trying to focus on my career and working with the team to go faster and faster, which is taking up a lot of my time. So I'm sure later down the line some more hobbies will come in.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. Ashley on Twitter would like to know, if you weren't a driver in the team, what else would you be doing?
I'd probably want to be an engineer. Yeah, at school I took very engineering-based subjects, and I think there's an advantage to knowing what different changes on the car do, and having a rough idea on setup ideas and stuff. So I think that would probably be the next part I would have done if I couldn't be a driver. You've got quite a direct influence on the performance for the weekend as well. So yeah, there's that element of pressure and competition, but also it's highly technical, which I like as well.
What were your A-levels?
Maths, physics, and computer science.
Oh my God.
So yes, I was most likely going to be an engineer. If I wasn't a driver.
Yeah, I can see. I mean, do you think because of that background, you have a kind of slightly unique, out of sort of all of the drivers on the grid, perhaps that is a slightly unique aspect of your background, is that you can perhaps speak to the engineers in a way that maybe they're not used to speaking to some other drivers like?
I'm not sure. Obviously,
I suppose you only have your own experience.
Yes, I only have my own experience. Yeah. I think at this level, even without that background, you change an anti-roll bar or front wing, the driver knows exactly what it does after one time. So I don't know if it's the most important thing to have that. I think coming into the sport, it's nice to have a bit of background knowledge on that kind of stuff. And obviously being the drivers now in F1, that's probably one of the other differences I didn't mention is, we have a bespoke car for each team that the drivers can influence the development direction on. So knowing a little bit of the background of that is always nice. I don't actually know how many drivers finished school, so I guess maybe I'm a bit unique in that.
Yeah.
But no, it's hard to say if it adds an advantage. I certainly don't think it's a disadvantage.
No, definitely not. And I guess the lesson is stay in school. If you're a young aspiring racing driver, stay in school.
Yes.
Because you never know what might happen.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. Michael on Twitter would like to know, what do you guys do to prepare yourself for a race? Any traditions?
Not really any traditions. I think all of us on the grid have like a routine before we get in the car. So, like for myself, I do a warm-up, which is the same warm-up before each session at roughly the same time before each session. Speak to the engineers about what the plan is for the day or the session as well. But yeah, I'm pretty chilled with stuff
I can
like
see
that. So I do my warm-up, I jump in the car, and that's kind of it. To get ready for a weekend, of course, we're in the gym, we're running, we're cycling, trying to be physically ready as well, which is also difficult because we're away so much now. But yeah, just physically preparing to be the best, and then time on the sim as well. I think all of us probably do at least a day before each race to get ready there.
Yeah. Do you look at what other drivers are doing? For example, do you see Pierre on the grid doing the tennis ball thing? Go, I want to do that. Are you sort of trying to, because everyone's trying to get an advantage, aren't they? No matter how small, everyone's trying to look at what other people are doing. Is that the case?
I mean, I've seen him doing it before. But I think every driver has their own routine, and I think at this stage we more or less all know what works for us. I've been doing a similar kind of thing through my junior career. I'm sure Lando does a completely different warm up to me. So it's individual for everyone. Some people like to do a bit more, get a bit more hyped up. Some people like to do less. And just be more chilled. So depends on the driver and the personality, I think.
Yeah, I can see the chilled. I'm getting the chilled vibes. If you're like this before a race, you're fine.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I'm pretty low energy before a race. I think I think if you're, in my opinion, if you're too hyped up, too wound up, then that could be when stuff goes wrong. So nice and chilled and able to think straight.
Yeah. Katie would like to know, when is Lando going to get Oscar on the golf course?
He actually offered to come and, he offered a spot for me on, I think it was Wednesday before Barcelona.
Yeah.
I think his handicap is really good. I've never played golf.
He's got a lot better, hasn't he?
Yeah. So I've never played golf before. So I wasn't.
Never played? Really? Wow.
Not properly.
Yeah,
I think I've maybe done 9 holes with a couple of mates for a bit of fun, but I wasn't going to jump straight in. He gave me an hour's notice as well. He's like, do you want to come and play golf this afternoon? I'm like, maybe not. Maybe the driving range, but I'm sure he'll get me out there sometime. And Zach as well, because Zach's a massive golf fan. So I'm
good
sure.
Time on the course with the boss, isn't it?
Yes, exactly. I'm sure all 3 of us will be out there at some point during the summer.
Yeah. Are you one of those? I mean, obviously, I know you're cricket. You're pretty good at cricket. Are you someone who just was always good at sport at school? Are you just one of those annoying people?
I think before I started racing, I was decent at most of the sports I did. Once I took up racing, it was just so hard to commit enough time to anything else. So kind of went downhill from there, to be honest. Never been a massive fan of contact sports and stuff like that. It's a bit ironic when I drive a race car at 300 k's an hour.
It's different.
But yeah, I don't know. I'm okay at most sports. I think, since I've been racing, I'm good at racing, and everything else has taken a bit of a hit, but I'm happy with it like that.
Yeah, okay. Final question, because I'm going to let you go and warm up for your cricket match. Lucas would like to know, if you could drive in any era of F1, which would it be and why?
I mean, I think the cars from sort of the mid-2000s to 2010s, so the V10s, V8s, lighter cars, I think that's probably the era I would have chosen. Obviously now the cars are their safest, so I probably wouldn't go back to the 70s or 80s. As cool as that would be, I don't know how I feel about that. But yeah, mid-2000s, 2010s, just the noise. I actually never got to go to a race with the V8s. So
did you hear them? Am I right in thinking
I could hear them from my backyard?
From Albert Park?
Yes,
yeah.
At Albert Park. I could hear them from my house, but I never actually saw them in person. So that's probably the era I'd go back to. The cars sounded awesome, looked awesome. They were nice and light as well. So that's probably the era I would choose.
Yeah, nice one. Well, Oscar, thank you very much. Best of luck for the rest of the season.
Thank you very much. Cheers.